Welcome to today's video. China is developing a credit score system that aims to control society. The ALCU described it as a comprehensive and overwhelming surveillance tool. What exactly is a credit score system? This system assigns a score between 350 and 950 to every individual in China. Unlike credit scores in the United States, this system will even penalize minor offenses like jaywalking and expressing criticism towards the government. What is even more surprising is that individuals can be held accountable for the actions of their friends and family. The concept of the social credit system spread throughout English language media, with multiple sources explaining the alarming reality of the system. The news spread quickly, fueled by fast-paced headlines. America's skepticism towards the Chinese government has always been a talking point to many. This only added more fire to the narrative. Since then, the social credit system has received significant coverage from publications like the Financial Times, Economist, Fortune, and others. Ultimately, it ended in the system being mentioned at the White House, with Vice President Mike Pence describing it as an Orwellian control mechanism. However, there's more to it than what it seems like on the surface. If you ask someone who spent time in China about their experience, they would probably express confusion. Everyone knows that the Chinese government practices extensive censorship, but for the social credit system to function as described, the public must be aware of its existence, right? This situation is not a result of propaganda. While it is true that the Chinese government is knee-deep in propaganda, in the case of the social credit system, the response from those who have experienced it is confusion, unlike the West. Despite the well-documented atrocities committed by the government, the Orwellian credit score system that many have imagined in the media simply does not exist. The truth behind it is far more unsettling. In June 2014, the State Council of China published the planning outline for the establishment of a social credit system. This document was incredibly dull and unclear. It uses dense phrases like promote the improvement of legal person governance and manages to say very little. Another important aspect is the context in which this document was released. A month earlier, in May 2014, the Chinese government announced a war on terror targeting violent extremism in Xinjiang. This later escalated in severe actions against Uyghurs and other ethnic minorities, including mass incarcerations, surveillance, and ongoing violence that continues to this day. During this time, global skepticism towards the Chinese government grew, and the concept of social credit appeared suspiciously unclear. In the following years, China established an oppressive police state in Xinjiang, although it was less technologically advanced. This involved DNA collection, phone searches, and increased security checkpoints. Autocratic regimes like the Chinese Communist Party prioritize maintaining complete authority. They delegate power to lower levels of government to share responsibility and insulate themselves from direct blame when the actual implementation derives from the initial. Simultaneously, corruption, which had been tolerated to facilitate rapid economic growth, had reached the tipping point. Not only was the Chinese Communist Party losing control over its concept, the central government could distance itself by referring to the vague and unobjectionable nature of the policy documents. Another major aspect of the social credit concept revolved around trust. Interestingly, while outsiders often perceive China as a tightly controlled and closely monitored police state, many within China saw their country as the Wild West, lacking regulation and accountability. Several major scandals, such as the 2008 incident involving a company using toxic chemicals in milk and baby formula, deeply impacted the nation. These scandals created nationwide distrust, with some parents still suspicious of Chinese milk. To address challenges like these, the party proposed the idea of a reputation society without providing clear instructions on how to achieve it. This unclear narrative was intentional, with the party acting as the architect and leaving the local bureaucrats to interpret and implement solutions. The results varied as each city rushed to establish its own social credit reputation system, creating diverse rules and rewards. For example, one city announced that it would deduct 3 points for every 5 cigarettes smoked and 5 points for every 15,000 steps walked. However, no explanation was provided regarding how these numbers were determined or how the system could be effectively enforced. The public backlash against implementing the social credit system in various cities was strong, leading to the complete abandonment of some proposals. For instance, one city initially planned to penalize drunk driving and reward volunteer work, but later made the system optional. Another city assigned citizens grades from A to D, but it was quietly discontinued after comparisons were made to the Japanese occupation of China. These implementations were deemed weird and impractical. The central government was obviously unimpressed with the deviations from the original blueprint of the new system. Another vital component of the social credit concept involves blacklists. Previously, different government ministries maintained separate records, allowing individuals or entities to violate rules in one area without the knowledge of others. However, the new system aims to share data internally and with the public. This means that people can search for the name of a company and assess its reputation. Trustworthy entities are placed on red lists, while repeat offenders are put on blacklists. These blacklists predominantly include companies, but the owners and managers can also be implicated. Roughly 1% to 2% of companies and 0.15% to 0.3% of individuals are blacklisted each year, and this is only a ballpark figure. In the most severe cases, offenders who refuse to pay court-ordered damages despite having the necessary funds can face restrictions such as being banned from flights and trains or sending their children to private schools. However, these restrictions only apply to a specific type of offense and are lifted once the court orders are fulfilled. By 2018, over 12 million individuals classified as judgment defaulters had been affected, and some cities even publicly broadcasted their names in movie theaters. The social credit encompassed multiple aspects: the financial component involving 8 companies, city-level initiatives to incentivize good behavior, and the attempt to share government data across ministries. These components had little in common besides being labeled social credit. It is understandable if confusion arises from trying to fully grasp the concept. The true intention behind the design of the social credit system was not for global acceptance. It gave a lot of room for experimentation and maintained plausible deniability for the central government. As a result, many media outlets failed to grasp the distinct nature of the various projects and often combined them into a single narrative with a lack of better understanding. The belief in an Orwellian-style surveillance system stems from pre-existing anxieties and concerns about Chinese authoritarianism. The Chinese surveillance system is not news, though. It had long been established with real name registration required for all accounts on Chinese websites, SIM cards, and internet cafes. Blaming journalists solely for perpetuating a false narrative would be too convenient, as China also feeds into pre-existing anxieties and perceptions. The desires for simple solutions in areas like healthcare, education, and infrastructure in democracies are seldom at par with the idea in the minds of those with power. One must understand and accept that complex dynamics exist within any large organization, including the Chinese Communist Party with its 100 million members. People are people, and even under the same banner, conflicts, alliances, and individual ambitions are bound to exist. Delegating power to share responsibility creates a certain level of messy politics. The local governments and private companies responsible for implementing the social credit vision had their incentives, including overstating their capabilities. Similar to Silicon Valley, executives at companies like Alibaba and party officials from emerging cities might use buzzwords like big data, blockchain, and smart cities to impress their superiors in Beijing. Sesame Credit was a relatively basic version of a loyalty program similar to the Target Red Card. It focused on factors like the completion of a profile, adding friends on the app, and app usage frequency. It didn't have the power to grant European visas, but could help demonstrate financial stability, which could be one of the requirements for visa applications. Local governments often embrace terms like social credit because they are difficult to measure, unlike something concrete like GDP growth. This lack of oversight makes it easier to exaggerate claims about algorithms and big data, which often involve simple calculations and data recorded on spreadsheets or clipboards. The imagined social credit dystopia would require close coordination between numerous ministries, each vying for promotions, budget allocations, and regulatory authority. We must approach China's claims about big data and machine learning with the same skepticism we apply to any Silicon Valley startup. Right now, some people see China as extremely powerful, while others are encouraged to make it seem even more powerful than it actually is. It's important to keep a fair viewpoint and carefully assess the arguments and stories about China's actions. What are your thoughts on the social credit system? Let us know in the comments section. Thanks for watching this video.